beekeepers.
And now,
712's Randy Coral has this report.
Just ask Martin Rudolph. He'll tell you how fast grasshoppers can damage a field.
You know, when I was talking with my dad, and he's semi-retired, and he never remembers grasshoppers being, this many where it's really doing damage.
Authorities recommend that farmers check their fields for grasshoppers at least every 48 hours. 2 days ago, this field was just moisture stressed. Now the grasshoppers have moved in, right at the most critical time of development. The hoppers aren't yet bad enough to cause yield loss in this cornfield, but the corn plants are just beginning to tassel, and that's when they're vulnerable. Grasshoppers love to clip the tassels and later eat the silks, parts of the plant necessary to ear development. But it's a different story in the alfalfa. There, Rudolph has already lost yield to the insects.
Kind of walked through the field and all you saw was grasshoppers, and they'd done a lot of damage already on the alfalfa, and we decided to take the alfalfa off as fast as we can and spray the grasshoppers. So maybe we got a better chance of getting some third crop and prevent them from doing a lot more damage.
Rudolph is no stranger to poor crops. This is the third straight year of dry weather in Morrison County. And if the grasshoppers don't get his corn and alfalfa, the lack of rain might. But still, he figures the money he spends on spraying is worth it.
That's a cost, but what's hay going to be? What's the price of hay going to be later on?
In Morrison County, Randy Coral, 712 News.
The state's problem with grasshoppers is affecting more than farmers' crops. Because of efforts to control the grasshopper population, honeybees are now being threatened. 712's Joel Street has that story.
For many, the conception of bees is that they're something that people can live without. The fact is that directly or indirectly, bees have an impact on 1/3 of the food that hits our tables. Right now, those bees are being threatened by another insect, grasshoppers. This summer's grasshopper invasion is forcing farmers to protect their crops by spraying their fields. Unfortunately, those sprays can also be a death sentence to bees.
We're not against spraying the grasshoppers because we know that they have to be sprayed. What we're concerned about is the timing of the spraying.
Ideally, farmers would spray during the early morning hours before bees become active, or during the evening hours when the activity ends. State Inspector Don Jackson urges beekeepers to contact the State Agricultural Department if they have problems.
If a person's bees have been killed or damaged by spray when they're out foraging, that he report it to the State Department of Agriculture in St. Paul, because we cannot possibly take any action unless we know something is going on.
So far, Tweety hasn't been hurt too bad. Only one of his fields has been poisoned, but the danger is still very real.
Honeybees is all that we do, and so we're dependent upon the honey crop. And of course, if the bees get killed off, they don't make a honey crop, and then we don't have any income.
Tweety and other keepers are hoping that farmers will consider their situation, so he and other keepers won't get stung. In Eagle Bend, Joel Street, 712 News.
If you have questions about spraying or you're a beekeeper experiencing problems, you are asked to call the State Agriculture Department at area code 612-296-0591.
Lakes. Agricultural officials and state politicians were invited to speak before the Producers Association about a possible solution.
A fair and equitable solution that will affect all involved, will come out. The applicators will be able to stay in business, and the farmers will be able to protect their crop, and most of all, this group is concerned that the honeybees will be allowed to do their thing for the years to come.
Last year, the honey crop alone netted $10 million. This year, that amount could drop by as much as 25% because of the spraying. And for the beekeepers here, that could spell trouble in the future. Unfortunately, for some, the future may be now. As losses continue to mount in the hives, beekeepers search for answers.
That have some restrictions on spraying flowering crops in daylight hours. Early morning, we would have had no damage, and nighttime spraying, we would have had no damage.
We don't complain about the farmers spraying, but I wish they'd use pesticides that won't put us out of business.
The honey business isn't the only one that will suffer. With the bees dead or dying, there are none left to pollinate the soybean and sunflower crops, hurting those producers as well. In Detroit Lakes, Joel Streed, 712 News.
What do you get when you mix computers in Ojibwe?
Neighbor against neighbor, pitting farmers against beekeepers, and crop sprayers are caught in the middle. Jason Bramby tells us about a meeting in Thief River Falls where some Minnesota lawmakers tried to sort out the differences.
Nearly everyone agrees there are way too many grasshoppers, but the battle to get rid of them is causing a lot of disagreement.
You put neighbor against neighbor, and I saw a lot of feuds break out over this.
At center stage of the feud are bees. Pesticides used to kill grasshoppers are taking a huge toll on the state's bee population.
The level of damage to bees was the highest that I've seen in 20 years in Minnesota.
It is going to put out some of the beekeepers out of business because they've lost just about 3/4 of their outfits.
Members of the Minnesota House Committee on Grasshopper Control listened as farmers, beekeepers, and sprayers suggested solutions. Sprayers say maps outlining beehive locations would help. Beekeepers say spraying only early in the morning and late in the evening would keep the bees out of harm's way. But sprayers say that's not easy.
It costs a lot of money to set an aircraft up for night flying, not to mention the danger factor to us, the pilots and operators.
Ag Commissioner Jim Nichols says some bee losses are inevitable, and the state should be prepared to help pay.
There are losers in every battle, and sometimes the only thing you can do is monetary compensation.
The latest estimates put statewide spraying costs between $20 and $30 million. But without spraying, crop damage could have topped the $100 million mark. The committee will use testimony from the meeting to formulate new laws and an aid package. Mindful of predictions, the grasshopper problem could be worse next summer.
A similar hearing will be held in Herman August 29th. That meeting is scheduled for 8 o'clock at American Legion Hall. I should say 8 p.m. Favorable weather conditions pressured corn and soybean. Joel